Okay, so let's talk about themes and symbols and what the story, air quote, is about, okay? I'm going to throw this word out for you. It's one of your literary terms, and it's allegory. An allegory is basically a retelling of some other story, sort of a mirroring. So we have one thing happening maybe in real life or in popular culture, and then the allegory of the literature is sort of retelling that whole story or parts of that story. So start thinking to yourselves, what things this situation in the lottery might be mirroring or might be an allegory for. So I'll let you think about that for a second, and then I'll give you a little bit of information. This story, if you check your textbook, was written in 1948. Ask yourselves, what was happening in the 1940s in the United States and in the world? What was happening in Europe? What was happening in Asia? Well, we have the Second World War, right? Now, I was not alive during the Second World War. I was not alive during Vietnam. I know that there was a draft in Vietnam, and I did not learn until a couple of years ago that there was actually a draft for World War II as well. Are there any similarities between a draft kind of situation and what's going on in the lottery? Well, yeah, I think there are. I think the draft works by means of choosing numbers, and if your number is drawn, then you have to enlist in the military. So I think that's one kind of allegory where just a couple of years before, people were being drafted into the Second World War. So I think that's one kind of allegory that's going on. So maybe this is a kind of social or cultural commentary on what our life in the United States was like for a certain time. But I think we can also look at this in a different direction. Are you all familiar with the term conformity? I imagine that you are. What does it mean to conform or to be a conformist? Well, basically it means to be a follower, right? Is there any instance of that happening in the story? I think the entire story is about that, is about people just sort of following. We have a couple of people challenging, maybe not any one specific authority, not Mr. Summers or Old Man Warner, but they're wondering to themselves, sometimes out loud, why are we still having this lottery? In the North Village, they don't do the lottery anymore, so why are we still doing that? Old Man Warner says, he calls these people a pack of young fools, and he says, we've been doing this, as long as I've been alive, so why would we change? But I think that the story in a way is also about conformity. Let's think about Tessie Hutchinson. Is she a static or dynamic character? What's her opinion of the lottery before and after her name is chosen? I've had some students say that they believe that she's against the lottery the whole time. But if she's against the lottery, then why the heck doesn't she leave in the beginning? She's late. She looks out the window to look for her husband, whom she thinks is still stacking wood or cutting wood, and he's gone. So if she realizes she's by herself, and today is the day of the lottery, and she's really against the lottery, why wouldn't she just leave? But she doesn't leave. She goes to the lottery, and then eventually her number or her piece of paper is picked. She has the black dot, and then we assume that she's stoned. So I don't think that she's really opposing the lottery before her lot is chosen. So I think she, just like everyone else in the village, sort of conforms to this tradition that's happening in the lottery. And I think, there are a lot of things that we probably conform to in our lives. So I'm sort of stepping away from literature now and talking about the way we lead our lives day to day. And when you're in school, you're all, maybe we have some high school students here, but you're probably in college, but, you've probably had experiences in your lives where you've conformed, or you've seen something happening that you wanted to stop, but you didn't stop. It could be bullying, it could be, I don't know, one of your friends is going to steal something from the convenience store or anything, and you're thinking to yourself, this is not right, but you don't stop them. So I think in a way, that could be another symbolic theme of the story, is that, the human tendency to just go along with what's being said, and then the story points out the sometimes terrible consequences of that, right? So those are a couple of things that when we're talking about, what the story is about, you can keep those in mind. Maybe it's a historical allegory for the draft in World War II, and maybe it's a symbolic way of getting us to think about how we deal with conformity in our lives, how and if and whether we challenge authority and those sorts of things. So I think those are interesting things to keep in mind as we read and reread and discuss the story.